Hello there. I am so glad that y'all are here tonight because I absolutely love my guest, and I think y'all are going to love it too. He is so much fun. And just so you know, Carl is on the road. So they're on their way to a wedding. So it's just me and my guest. He should probably be very afraid, but maybe not so much. Now, y'all have seen him before if you've watched me for a while. He's a lot of fun, he's a lot of smart. He is one of the better researchers I think in our field. He is he's just a lot of fun. He is a paranormal investigator. He's a parapsychologist. He is somebody who has his hands in just about everything. If I were going to pick somebody to go with me to do an investigation, it would be Randy. And that's saying something because I'm particular about who I investigate with. But if I had a problem case, this would be the guy too. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Randy Liebeck in. And hello.
Hey, Kat. Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here. You know,
My pleasure.
it's been a long time.
It's been a
And
while. We've chatted a few times in the past.
we have, and I've enjoyed it every time.
I do
So,
want to make one quick correction before my parapsychologist friends get mad at me.
oh,
I am not a parapsychologist. I do not have the specific credentials required for that label. I'm a parapsychological field investigator, and
thank
I
you.
work with parapsychologists.
Thank you for that correction because that is a distinction. So I apologize for getting that wrong. But, one of the things that I'm really enthused about is that you approach just about any subject matter. There's never been something I've tossed at you that you did not have knowledge about. And I can't say that about everybody.
If I
So,
can't make it, I fake it. But yeah, I do. I mean, I've been uh, wandering around this field for many years, so I've been exposed to, if not actual casework in different areas, I have at least read the literature and, of course, read Fate magazine for decades. So, yeah, if I have some knowledge of most paranormal, quote unquote, subjects, some more than other. I specialize in ghost hauntings, poltergeist cases, but I can also put a shot of whiskey in me. I can talk about UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever comes up.
well, it's always good around a campfire with a nice shot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I enjoy most about being able to do Fate Magazine radio is that I get exposed to so much. And Phyllis will send me, Phyllis Galdi, who is the owner of Fate Magazine, will send me an email that she might have gotten or an idea and say, "What do you think about this person?" And I'm like, "Well, let's talk to them." So that just makes it even more special. I've done paranormal experience for 10 years. I've done Fate for 5, and there's a lot of overlap, but I try to make sure that that overlap is relevant, for lack of a better word. I just think it's fun. I know how blessed I am to be able to do this, and I'll take it every time. But I'm like investigating too. And I started off with just working with a team here in Birmingham that people got together. They wanted to do ghost hunting because they'd seen the shows and all the other stuff, which is how a lot of people come here. And not a lot of actual education on the topics, right? And then I ran into this guy named Frank Lee, who you also know from Birmingham, who actually has been working on his I don't know if he's still working on his psychology degree. He may have already achieved it, or I don't know. I should ask him that. I haven't talked to him in a while. But he was going to go and get that side of our study group together. because dotting the I's and crossing the T's is a big deal when you're trying to do something and have your credibility. And that's why I appreciate so much you correcting me, because it does matter.
Yep. I don't have that MA or PhD next to my name yet. So, just like being a psychologist or an anthropologist, to use that title, you have to have the credentials.
You do.
But lots of people work in those fields, including parapsychology, who are not credentialed scientists, not parapsychologists. But our work is guided by parapsychologists, by the people with the letters next to their name.
Well, and the knowledge base that they've come and the experiences that they've come across in gaining those credentials, there's so much work out there, and there's so many way that things present themselves. And what do you find to be your favorite area of study in this field?
I've always been fascinated specifically by reports of hauntings, apparitions, i.e., ghosts, and poltergeist activity. And within the study of those areas, there are different scientific domains at work. You have psychology. Not everybody has the mental processes to perceive these things. You can have 5 people in a room, and 2 of them will point at the exact same spot and say, "Hey, see that lady in the green dress standing there?" And they describe the exact same thing, but the other 3 people in the room don't see anything.
Right.
So there is something about how the brain is wired, how the psychological processes work. So I'm fascinated by that. Why do some people experience this and some people don't? And there have been a lot of studies done in psychology indicating that certain types of personality are more prone to perceive these things. People who have a stronger imagination. It does not mean they're imagining this. It just means that that capability of their mind to imagine allows them to tune in to certain things that maybe not everyone can. People who are artistically inclined, and their brains are wired differently than engineers' brains are wired. And people who have artistic, whether it's art, poetry, writers, photographers, these people have more cases of being able to perceive these things. So I'm fascinated by that. Part of it also crosses over into the neurological domain.
Mm-hmm.
We know with poltergeist cases, there are certain specific neurological profiles for poltergeist foci and potential agents. People going through puberty, and their brains are starting to change neural pathways as they go through that process. Lots of times, kids who are psychic or can see ghosts, who are poltergeist agents, they grow out of it. They grow out of that ability because their brains are maturing. The wiring is becoming locked into an adult permanent network. So there are neurological aspects. There are physics aspects. If a poltergeist picks up an ashtray and throws it across the room, and it's not just in your mind's eye, I mean, you film it and the ashtray shatters and you pick up the pieces, something physically happened. Some force lifted that ashtray up, flung it across the room. We don't have a clue what that force is. In the field, we use the term energy.
Yes.
A lot, which means nothing. It's a night. We have to have some kind of word to use. So energy, force is what we use. But I'm fascinated by that too. So it's all these different domains. There's a sociological aspect to it too, and cultural aspect. In some cases, people perceive and report things a little bit differently. In Hungary and Romania, you're not going to find very many reports in the literature of poltergeist cases. So you think, okay, don't poltergeists occur in Eastern Europe? Yes, of course they do, but they don't call it that. The exact same phenomena, floating ashtrays, that kind of stuff, doors opening and closing. The same cases we report here happen there, but they call it a vampire.
Vampire is poltergeistic activity?
In Eastern European legend and folklore, particularly Romania and Hungary. When these kind of things happen, they attribute it to the work of a vampire. And a vampire there is a little bit more broad than we look at it in the West. Here, a vampire is Count Dracula with fangs, goes and sucks your blood. There, a vampire is a supernatural creature with spiritual powers and abilities and can cause hauntings, can cause poltergeist activities. They just don't call it that. There are other cultures where they look at things through a religious perspective, and including in the U.S., there are subcultures here where anything like that happens is the work of evil spirits or the devil. So there's so many aspects, so many lenses you can look at this phenomena through. And that's why parapsychology is a multidisciplinary science. You have to have a little bit of knowledge of all of these areas, including the parapsychological models and theories that have been developed over since the 1800s. Very few people are an expert in all these domains. You're not going to have somebody who is a physicist and a psychologist and a sociologist and an anthropologist and a neurologist working on a case. But most of the folks do have at least some coursework, some exposure to this, and others, but people specialize in their areas. So a great team for this kind of stuff is to have a psychologist, a sociologist, a neurologist, a physicist, and even a spiritualist. Bring along, somebody who says they're a medium, get their perspective and see if what they're picking up on correlates with what the scientific team is detecting. And very often it does. So that fascinates me.
That fascinates me as well. In fact, I'm more the spirit. Well, I'm pretty analytical, but I'm also have some psychic ability. And it's interesting because my research partner, who, frankly, at the time is very not, he steered away from that strongly. And yet he couldn't argue with what I was getting and experiencing when we were doing investigations. And I actually had him smudging a house one day. That was fun. But I couldn't reach. But it is nice to have balance, because it's real easy for somebody like me to go in and say, well, and I'm not a physical medium. I did have some medium experiences, like two evidentiary experiences when I was in Scotland, but I think that's just because of the energy there. It was very unpleasant, and I don't want to do that anymore. But it's interesting to me that I can experience the woo side of it, but I don't want it without being able to do analysis of it. So that's why you have to be able to look at it and say, but why did I see that? Or why did I experience that? And
why did somebody else on your team not?
Exactly. Exactly. Because, it's no fun if you're the only one, having experiences. You need documentation of them, and then to be able to find a reason for them to be occurring. It's not always easy to do that.
And there's so many, possibilities. I think anybody in our field who says they know the answers is talking out of their butt. There are clues, and there are things that point in certain directions, but we do not know the answers. Maybe the reason that you perceive something in a location psychically, and someone else doesn't, might be because whatever is there, if we're talking about a ghost surviving human consciousness, maybe there's something about you that resonates with them, and you're the person they want to communicate with, and not the other person you're with. Or it may be that your perception, your psychology, your neurology is such that only you you're the only person in the room that can perceive and make contact with this, whatever it is. Don't know. They might like blondes. and that's why they're picking you. Um, what we have noticed is that some of the best evidence for surviving human consciousness, that some of these cases involve a ghost, the surviving spirit of a dead person. And there are always other alternative possibilities. I could come up with an entire alternative explanation for these things, which do not involve the existence of a ghost.
With a
The witness
consciousness, residual
could
consciousness.
be your subconscious causing causing internal perceptions which have no external reality, or there could be an external reality, but it might be that you or someone else at that location is projecting that through
Well,
psychokinesis, and you're
right, just
creating it.
manifesting it
Yeah.
themselves.
But there are hundreds of years of research with mediums and medium testimony on cases, and a lot of the evidence they present is veridical. It can be verified as accurate when they're talking about, okay, this is the ghost of so and so. They died and so, and they're here for this reason. And very often the research team does not know that information. And after the fact, when you go to the books and research it, the medium is absolutely accurate about this. And sometimes this is what they're saying is the first time this is ever made public knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not known to anybody until the research is done after the fact. So that is prima facie evidence that mediums and psychics are tapping into something that most people can't, at least not to that degree. But even then, the argument is going to be, okay, they're picking up knowledge, but is there a ghost standing there whispering that in their ear? Or are they just picking up information? Are they tapping in to the Akashic record, the holographic universe, or the giant cosmic internet? Are they plugging in and just extracting that information? So that can be argued as having a non-spiritual explanation. But I think I've been doing this work in the field and as studying it for many, many, many years. And at this point, I am not wedded to the spiritualist hypothesis. I'm not going to say, yep, I'm absolutely sure that hauntings and ghostly encounters are, a dear dead Aunt Mabel coming back to make contact, because we cannot prove that.
Right.
However, there's a lot of suggestive evidence in many cases that makes more sense than some of the other ideas. But I'm also aware that you can explain some of this stuff away, or at least try, without relying on surviving human consciousness, that living people, are causing this. So I can go either way. I think some cases are suggestive of one, other cases are suggestive of the other. There are some cases which seem to be a combination, where you have a witness who is affecting things psychically, but there's also a dead person there. So many things are intertwined in a lot of these cases. But after all these years, I'm still looking. I'm asking questions and looking for answers, and I'm not locked into any one philosophy on it. I just think it's important for me to be aware of what the different philosophies and different models are, and try to look at these things through the widest aperture possible.
Well, that's when I make the best photos as a photographer, is when I've got enough light and I've got enough information, and I can get as much into it as I need. I do want to intersperse here, because we have Robert Gorman in chat, who is one of my personal heroes. So hello, Robert. Thank you for being here, and Mark and Lori too. But I just think that it's so interesting, because, when you're, and I don't do residentials anymore. I don't have enough people with me that I can always go and do that. But I do like to go to locations that are reported to have activity and just experience. I don't necessarily publicize it. I don't necessarily, talk about where I've been. but I like to experience things that I know have a history and that I feel has a strong and fairly well documented history. I don't like to go just to be a looky loo. I want to feel it. And but I do get where you're coming from because one of my one of my very first guests back when I first started doing radio was Dr. Raymond Moody,
Mhm.
and he is the life after death gentleman. Great author, great researcher, incredible scholar, and just a great human. And he lives near me. I didn't know that. But through him, I got exposed to some other really neat groups that you're familiar with. Um, Ions, there's some, I learned about Edgar Mitchell. I've been fortunate enough to get to talk to people like you, Ray Hernandez, um, just other people that do this from a science standpoint.
I envy your role in this because you get to talk to all these people and get to
Like
pick their
you,
minds, and that to me is amazing.
I'm really blessed. I really am. And most of these people I spoke with when I very first started doing this, like 10 years ago, I've gotten exposed to so many ideas that I had really never contemplated. And then, like Ray Moody, who would have thought that I would just send him an email and say, I'd really like to have a talk with you. Well, okay, when you want to talk. And then he was late. So he was, you know, he was discombobulated. I was discombobulated. It was hilarious. And, you know, and now he's just somebody I think is an amazing person. So I think that of just about everybody I get the chance to talk to like this. I love learning.
And everybody, the names you've mentioned and many others, everybody in parapsychology and psychical research, have their own ideas.
Hmm.
And
They
not
do.
everybody agrees. Parapsychology is not homogenous science. There is no industry standard model that everyone accepts for this stuff. There are parapsychologists. I think probably it might be a little bit risky to say probably, but I think it's quite likely that most parapsychologists do not believe in ghosts
I would
as
agree.
surviving human consciousness. They look at it more from this ESP model and psychokinesis model that the living witness is creating this stuff. There are other parapsychologists who are completely open to the spiritual hypothesis. Lloyd Auerbach, for one,
True.
he's had encounters that he's convinced encounters, with ghosts himself. He's seen things. He's worked with a lot of mediums. So even within the field, there are so many different viewpoints, and luckily everybody works together, even if they don't disagree, even if they don't agree with each other completely. But
Well, but they're
everybody,
always professional, I
yeah,
feel. You know, the disagreement is not overwhelming. And Robert says in chat, science reinforces the bars of this spatial temporal prison that we call reality. We can't unlock the paranormal using methods and experiments designed to study our world. I would agree with that to an extent.
uh,
I've learned.
there, there is a growing sense within the field that Robert is absolutely right.
Yes.
That these things happen. Um, People throw around the term, quantum physics and multiverses and stuff like that, without really knowing what they're talking about.
Hmm.
And really, what we know about quantum physics, we only know on uh, the atomic and subatomic
Hmm.
level, and we can see that particles affect other particles and teleport, and information can instantaneously uh, uh, cross space.
Hmm.
Uh, so we know spooky things do happen on the subatomic level. So it's a natural and understandable thought process to say, okay, this we know this stuff does happen. It happens at the quantum level.
Mhm.
So maybe this explains what's happening at the macro level. This is explaining, the haunted houses and explaining ashtrays flying across the room. Maybe, but I just want to make it clear to everybody, there is no research or experimental evidence which shows that any of this carries over from the subatomic level to the macro level that we can see and experience it.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, please
Can
do.
you, for people that are not as science based, clarify those terms?
Well, I'm not that science based either. Quantum physics is the study of reality and how things work
Mm-hmm.
at the subatomic level, things that you can't see with your eyes, but which happen at the basic fabric of reality. Uh, and uh, classic physics tells us that affecting one object or one particle or one atom at point A will not affect any other atom that's not physically contacting it. Uh, and that's true. But when you break the atoms down into their smaller components, into the subatomic particles, and then you get into the quantum level where you're talking about things that are even smaller than subatomic levels, they've done experiments which indicate that uh, affecting one item, one particle, will affect another particle at a physical distance. We're talking very minute physical distances.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to us, it seems there's no difference, but at that level, yes, it's a huge chasm in affecting one particle that is somehow connected with another particle. And what you do to particle A will cause the exact same effect in particle B. Uh, there have been studies done where even observing a particle, some particles exist as particles, and sometimes they're waves.
Yeah.
And when you decide you're going to observe one, uh, it will do strange things, which indicates it's aware that it's being watched. How is that in any way, shape, or form possible in our understanding of reality?
Exactly.
They've been doing quantum teleportation, where the particle A through don't ask me to explain the process or the equipment.
No,
Or
I just love
thing.
the discussion.
Yep. But using sciencey equipment, they are actually able to teleport particle A to a different location instantaneously, like the USS Enterprise's transporters. So it just boggles my mind. This stuff does happen. It's real.
Mm-hmm.
No one really understands how. It is counterintuitive for what we expect about how reality works.
Yeah. Would that go back to the Philadelphia experiment?
Well, I'm not the right person to ask about the Philadelphia experiment because I'm quite familiar with it. I've read the books. I've seen the
I mean, I know you
documentaries.
are. So
Yeah, but it's a
would
work
that
of
be the
a
kind
work
of
of
concept that's being described? Is the possibility for that?
well, you can always retcon past stuff and try to apply current concepts to it. When Carlos Allende and the other folks came up with that story and sold the idea to Charles Berlitz to write about it, they were not thinking in terms of this could be quantum physics or spooky action at a distance. They were looking at it as manipulation of magnetic fields. This opened up a time vortex or teleportation vortex and a time vortex, and these things happened. I do know there's been a lot of research and in-depth studies into this case done over the years, and a lot of very competent researchers have torn it apart.
Mm-hmm.
It is a work of fiction.
But is the idea of
Well, I mean, it could be. Let's say it really did happen, then some sort of physics it has to be at work to allow things to dematerialize, reappear in different locations in different time periods, for people to become fused into the metal of the USS Eldridge. So some sort of physics has to be at work, and it's not classic physics. It's not Einstein kind of stuff. It's Stephen Hawking's, Niels Bohr, spooky physics. So yeah, if it was real, something else beyond our current comprehension of reality is at work. And it could be. Again, we're assuming that's a real case, which I'm not assuming. But even in things that I think are real, in poltergeist cases, you have matter interpenetrating matter. The Tina Resch poltergeist case, Columbus, Ohio, 1984. The family refrigerator had eggs inside the refrigerator. Witnesses saw the eggs passing through the refrigerator door with a plopping sound and shooting across the room and smashing on the wall. That's matter passing through matter, which is kind of similar to some of the Philadelphia experiment stuff. That was one of Bill Roll's cases that he worked. There are cases, again, where inflammable objects burst into flames. There are cases, in poltergeist cases, where stainless steel kitchen sink faucets burst into flame. Stainless steel cannot burn. It can melt if an airplane hits a skyscraper, but it will not burn. But there's fire, coming out of steel. These are things that physics tells us cannot happen, but it happens. So there has to be some alternative explanation for it, and that might very well be in the quantum level, where the reality there is not the same reality that we experience, and there may be some crossover. But again, there's no experimental evidence for this, and there's no model to tell us how this could happen. But if you observe something, you apply the scientific method. Scientific method is something happens, you make notes about what happened, you say, okay, maybe this is how it happened. Then you test that, and you keep making observations, and you keep tweaking your hypothesis until you get something which is testable, and the test results keep coming up. Yep, this is what seems to be what's going on. We don't really have that in this stuff. We do have some working models and hypotheses for ghosts, dead people coming back from the grave. There's not really a model other than, hey, dead people coming back from the grave without a body. That's pretty simple. It's spiritual. There's not really any scientific model you can have for that.
What about the fact that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I got, squirrel moment. I'm sorry. But when you talk about spiritual coming back, okay, disembodied, there's not a figure, there's not a body. And yet often there is an impression of a physical being, even though it's not a living human. Is that just a simple manifestation? And how does that hit a psyche to allow them to present that?
In general, our concept of this is that the ghost has no physical material. There's nothing there you can photograph. There's nothing there that's reflecting light so that the human eye can see it through a normal vision process. In most cases where people see the ghost, and usually it's a person they see. They don't see a glowing, person wearing a sheet type thing or misty. There are cases, there are outlier cases where people see mists and shadows, and
That's
I think
true,
some of those are legitimate experiences. But 99% of people seeing apparitions throughout recorded history have been seeing somebody three-dimensional, full color. They just think you're seeing a regularly living person until it fades away or until you blink and it's gone. But again, in those cases, it's 2-3 people in a crowd see it, the others don't. So what's being seen is not vision. Nothing's reflecting light, because if it was, everybody would see it.
Hmm.
So we think that when you see an apparition, or I see an apparition, I've not seen one yet, and I've got my fingers crossed, but it's a psychic impression. You are seeing
Okay.
that through ESP,
Hmm.
uh, either because there's something encoded or recorded in the local environment, like a videotape recording, and
At the stone tape kind of
you have the
thing.
psychic ability to play that back. And there probably would not be a ghost there. This is something that was recorded by living people a long time ago, either trauma, fear, or just repetitive action over years and decades. It seems that in some locations, not all can record itself,
Hmm.
and some people, not all, can play that back in their minds. Uh, in a case where it's a ghost, dead Aunt Mabel has come back to say hi, and you see her, we still think it's psychic. A dead Aunt Mabel is sending you a psychic message or transmission. I'm here.
Sorry.
I want you to see me, and this is how I look, and you pick up on that. But it's
So
being
that you can
processed.
recognize me.
Yeah, so it recognizes you, and it's being processed. It's coming to you psychically through whatever mechanism that happens, and we do not know. But it's the final processing appears to be happening in the visual imaging area of your brain. So what you wind up finally seeing, quote unquote, looks just like anything else you would see. It looks like a living person again until it disappears or
Until
fades
it's not
away.
there.
Yep. And very often it's been observed that when ghosts appear like that to somebody that can perceive them, they appear differently at different times. Sometimes they'll be wearing different clothes. Sometimes it'll appear different ages. If
I have
Aunt
had that.
Mabel
Yeah.
died when she was 80, once she might appear like that. Another time she might appear how she looked when she was at her best in her 20s or 30s.
I've had people, and I feel like that's what they were trying to do, was try to present the best them that they could.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
if you or I came back from the grave, let's say I come back and I want to say hi, cat. Uh,
yeah,
I'm going to want to look my best, because because if a ghost is surviving human consciousness with personality, then they're still people, just without a
sure.
body. So I would still be me, you would still be you, and uh, we're going to want to appear looking good. That's probably why ghosts wear clothes. There are not many reports of naked
Well, I
ghosts.
would certainly be wearing clothes.
Yeah, we don't think there is ghost clothes out there that they go put on, but since what you're perceiving is an image they're sending to you,
Hmm.
they're going to
It's how
send an
they're
image
sharing
in their own
themselves with
clothes.
you.
Mhm.
I have a lot of questions in chat, and it's really going to be a lot of fun for you.
The dog agrees
And
too.
the doggy dad is home. Um, Robert Robert has been part of Fate magazine forever. And so he actually, when we were back in, hey Margetti. So we were I'm gonna start with this one. But when we were talking about the Philadelphia experiment, Robert said, sorry, I debunked Carl Allen in Fate magazine, the October 1980 issue. I don't know who Carl Allen is. I'm assuming you do.
He might mean Carlos Allende, who was the guy who claimed he was on the Eldridge and
Okay.
reported all this stuff.
Okay. So I'm
And
also
his real name might have been Carl Allen. I think Carlos Allende was a nom de guerre.
gotcha. So he had wanted me to ask you about apports.
Okay. Apports are very common phenomena in poltergeist cases, not so much in hauntings and ghost cases. But
Okay.
an apport is something that appears out of nowhere
Which
from
is
some
so weird.
unknown location. And poltergeist cases, you'll have I've worked poltergeist cases with apports, with coins and rocks appearing. Um, Never seen one pop into existence, but I've heard them and caught them out of the corner of my eye when they go whizzing past. I do have colleagues I've worked with who've actually seen these things appear midair, and you'll have again coins. uh, sometimes religious items. One case, the group I was working with back in the 90s, they were working a case where hosts, the Catholic wafers you put on your tongue during communion, the hosts were popping into existence from empty space in a closed room. And the team collected dozens, if not hundreds, of those, which there is no explanation for it. That's an apport. In some apport cases, you'll have objects appear which have obviously traveled a distance. You'll get a gem or stone which is not indigenous to the local area. That is something that only exists on the other side of the country. Sometimes rare coins will appear. Coins from the 1700s, 1800s from other countries. Sometimes very, very valuable collectible coins with monetary value behind them, and they just are popping left and right in a poltergeist location. So poltergeists have no concept of value and expensive items.
Right.
Some cases, and a good guy to talk about this kind of stuff with is a UK colleague of mine named Darren Ritson, who's worked some really high strangeness poltergeist cases. He could tell you about things that might disappear from you're in your house and apports start popping in from out of nowhere. But then across the city, across the country, or on the other side of the world, there's another house where those objects used to be sitting on somebody's shelf and they just popped out of existence.
Wow.
So
that would be so trippy.
Yeah. A valuable coin in Uganda disappears, and the guy says, where's my valuable coin? And it appears in somebody's house in Des Moines, Iowa. So when it goes away, it's called a deportation.
Okay.
When it shows up, it's an apport. And
I just didn't realize they were so varied.
All kinds of stuff. And in many cases, when it's something solid like a stone or a coin, if you touch them right after they appear, they're noticeably warm, sometimes hot, but usually warm. What does that mean? We don't know. Brainstorming it, it might be that whatever kind of spooky physics is at work, the energy being required to cause that to happen, heats up the object possibly as a side effect of the process.
That would be probably the most logical thing, that it's not just an automatic, just bop, that it would be friction of some type.
You would think. I mean, we don't know. So it's
possibilities.
Trying to apply our understanding of how other things, in our reality work. But the rules that govern this kind of stuff might be so far outside of our reality that
we don't even have a clue.
Try to explain things.
But isn't it fun when you're trying to find them? I mean,
this is all fun.
I know, right? I think so too. I love it.
Yeah, and I don't want to come across as saying, this is all just about looking at, brain scans to see what areas of the brain
those are fun too.
Up.
Those are fun too.
Yeah, it is interesting, but we do need scientists who just focus on that to help try to do their little piece of the puzzle for us. But the joy of being a generalist, which I am, and looking at it from a multidisciplinary perspective, a little bit of a jack of all trades, but master of none.
But you sure are fun to talk to.
I like looking at it in the big picture kind of thing,
yes,
which I think you see all aspects. You go, wow, okay, it could be some of this, could be some of that, but what is happening is amazing. And the fact that we are exposed to it and sometimes encounter it and are in a position to actually at least play around the edges of the science and try to contribute to some understanding. Even these discussions, we're helping to contribute to at least brainstorming that put thoughts in people's heads. Hey, I hadn't thought about this possibility before. Or maybe somebody in your audience after the show, we'll talk to somebody else about it, and they'll compare notes and expand and come up with ideas that we haven't thought of.
And, that's kind of the whole reason we do these things. You you research, you write, you study, you do everything. And people need to know what people like you are thinking. That's why people put out papers, that's why people present. And for somebody like me, I go and find people like you, right? Like you and Ray, all these people. And because I'm so curious, and my listeners are too. I mean, I did this when it was Paranormal Experience 10 years ago, and I had never had a dream I would be hosting Fate, right? So to be able to have the access, and because people want to share that, people like you're not trying to do this in a void. You're trying to get information and share that and put it out there. And you mentioned Lloyd, Professor Paranormal himself, he is trying to educate everybody. And I cannot voice enough the respect I have for you researchers that are sitting there doing what is a lot of times really dry work, but you're finding so much information and you're able and willing to share it, and you do it in such a way that it's interesting and people want to come along.
I think I can best describe what I do. People say, "Hey, Randy, what do you do in the field?" I'm not a Ghostbuster. Because if I found a ghost, the last thing I want to do is bust it and get rid of it. I want
No doubt. I want it there.
Want to talk to it and,
Yes.
But I think what my best role, not being a scientist, but being exposed to the scientific fields, and I work and I'm friends with parapsychologists. I'm friends with Lloyd. I work with parapsychologists at the SPR. I think my role or reason to exist in this field is to siphon and distill some of the scientific stuff, which most lay people, I think, may not have been exposed to, and try to convert that to language that I can understand and that other people can understand. And, rather than talking about, sounding like I'm on an episode of Grey's Anatomy talking about neurological, things. Firing.
And I'm glad you don't do that.
I just to say, hey, we think that certain things occur in the brain, as evidenced with adolescents going through puberty and stress, and that actually changes how their brain functions. That combined with certain stress environments, which changes their psychology.
Yes.
And we think that obviously kids all over the world, go through puberty, have stress and have trauma in their lives, but not everybody creates poltergeist events or does not have it happen around them. So there are other factors. Some might be geological or geophysical as far as location, maybe having this neurology issue and the psychology issue, but you have to be also at point A, because it won't happen if you're at point B on the map. And these are all things that scientists have developed ideas and brainstormed and written hypotheses about, which not everybody can sit and read every issue of the Journal of Parapsychology and the Journal of the SPR. I do. So I pick out things I think are useful, and I try to pass that on, filter it, put it in understandable language, and try to educate. It's kind of like a bridge between the science of parapsychology and the lay amateur ghost investigation community out there. To at least expose them. Hey, there's a science that actually deals with this, and these are some of the things that are being done in that arena. At least be aware of some of them, because some of it most likely does have something to do with what you're out there in the field looking for. So when I teach classes, lecture, occasionally I write. When I do that, I'm hoping to serve as that bridge.
Well, I think you do a good job of that.
I try because again, I don't expect the average person on the Monmouth County ghost hunting team, to sit there and be reading the articles in the scientific journals. If they do, great. I mean, anybody can subscribe to the journals, but it is kind of expensive, and a lot of them are written at a level that even I struggle to comprehend. So
I do too.
if I can help dumb it down a little bit, so that normal people like me can understand it, and then spread that out, say, hey, here's what I found out today, but put it
But
in
you do
English.
that, but you do that so well. I mean, because it doesn't have to be dumbed down for you, because you could not interpret that if that were the case. So
Yeah.
thanks for, you know,
I'm good at reading and comprehending the parapsychology journals, as long as they don't start getting into heavy statistics.
mhm.
Because when you start doing the statistical analysis and the meta analyses and stuff, I rely on the abstract, saying, okay, this is what this is saying. Because when I start getting into numbers and stuff like that, my eyes just glaze
I was
over.
going to say, is that where your eyes cross?
Yes,
Because
yes.
it's where my eyes cross. So, I can, and one of the things that, I mean, when I started doing this, I had no idea what noetic science was. I had no idea that there was a Raymond Moody out there documenting these near death experiences or these death experiences. And, I didn't realize that what I had at one point was that. So, I just knew that I was there. I wasn't there. I was there. It was one of those things. But I did know that everybody in the operating room had wet hair, including the physician's child that had to come in there with them because it was 5 in the morning and there was nobody to take the child. Right. So that was fun. But I shouldn't have known that, but I did. And it's really weird. Robert in chat was talking about when we were talking about the airports, he said consciousness does not require a body, which is true. I've had a lot of things show up that didn't have bodies. It's very weird. And he said we used to see ghosts of loved ones, and now we see ghosts of strangers. And I've done both. I don't know. I'll be at a location. I've been at a location that was ostensibly haunted and saw a person that I didn't know. So I guess maybe that is true. So, what do you, I mean, do you feel like this is completely going back? You okay with that?
Let's go back in the Wayback Machine.
The way, way back machine. It's not that far. But, when people, like I said, I like to go to locations. I've stopped doing residential work because I don't feel safe going into an environment where I'm not in control of it. And other people can be doing stuff. I don't have anybody to investigate with right now. So I'm not going to do that. But I do like going to locations, and I've been fortunate enough to visit outside of the country to do that. And I was on a battlefield. I've been on a battlefield here and had an experience with seeing a residual haunting. Okay. But when I was on a battlefield in Scotland, I had a physical manifestation set like I had been shot in my stomach. And it was weird because only one side had guns, and I would not have expected to be shot on a battlefield, hundreds of years later anyway. But and I still have pain from that every so often. It's like there's a residual pain that just kind of lingers with that. And it's not very often, but it's periodic. So, have you had any experience with researching a case that it was not a true injury, yet it still had residual
I've not
stuff?
researched a case with those factors myself. I've experienced it myself, though.
Have
Uh,
you?
one guy who could tell you a lot about uh, feeling sensations of distress and pain and illness from haunted locations would be Dr. Barry Taff.
I hadn't
He had
thought
worked
about
a
Dr.
case in
Barry.
California
Yeah.
where every time he entered the house, it was a house on Cielo Drive.
Yeah.
It had connection with the Sharon Tate
Mhm.
murders. And apparently there's something with that location which is toxic, but toxic psychically.
Mhm.
And it
Long
caused him
story
all
short.
kinds of health problems. And he doesn't think it was a ghost there doing it to him. It was something embedded into the environment, some
Mhm.
change to the energy dynamics. The one thing I've felt, which may or may not be along that, I'm a psychic as a brick. I go places. I'll have a psychic with me sometimes, and they'll say, "Hey, Randy, right there in that corner." Uh, and so I stick my meters down there, and I've actually gotten readings. Once I was working with a psychic who's no longer with us, but his name is Peter James. He was prolific back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I worked with him on a case, and we're at a house, and he says, "Randy, right here in the corner, right down there is a little girl." So I stuck my trifield meter, magnetometer down there, and the needle started going crazy. And then she's gone, and the needle stopped. But I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything. He said, "Put your hand there. You'll feel a tingling." I did not. Other people who were there did, and they said they felt it. I don't think I'm wired. However, I've been a few places where I've actually felt stuff, and these are public areas.
Mhm.
One was Gettysburg Battlefield. I was
Yeah.
in the Farnsworth house, and the attic of the Farnsworth house there was a sniper, I think a Connecticut sniper, and he was shooting into the town, and he caused the one civilian fatality during the battle. Jenny Wade
Mhm.
was in a house down the street a ways, and they think the bullet that killed her went through the door of her house. They think it came from the sniper's nest in the attic of the Farnsworth house. So I'm doing a ghost tour, and they're showing us around the house, and we go up into the attic, and I'm sitting. Had to find a place to sit on the floor, so I'm sitting near a window because it was a space where nobody else was sitting. And the tour host said, "Hey, you're sitting in the exact same spot where the sniper was," and he fired through that window. And uh, even before she said that, I was starting to feel very uncomfortable. It was feeling nauseous
Oh.
before she said anything. Before I knew I was in the sniper's nest, and as the time went on, the lecture went on, I kept saying, "Hurry up, get over this, because I'm going to throw up." I just a wave of nausea that I couldn't control. Finally, the group got up to move somewhere else. As soon as I got up and walked away from that window, the wave of nausea was completely gone, instantaneous. I didn't like slowly get better, didn't fade away. Boom, just like it when it came on. So I don't know, who knows, but I've always thought, maybe was I picking up some residual sensation of terror and fear of some young sniper in that window in the 1800s who was so scared that he was trying not to throw up. He was feeling nauseous.
It
Maybe I'm
makes
picking
it
up on
makes
that.
as much sense as anything else would.
Yep. Uh, and
It
other
really
places
is.
I felt stuff not like that, but in New York, French Quarter of New Orleans,
Mm.
I've walked into different buildings, and as soon as I've crossed the threshold in a couple of places, it's the instant, whoops, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Time to go.
Something palpably changes. The air gets denser. Uh, your hearing changes, like you're inside of like you're underwater.
Do you
Uh,
know where those places were? Do you know the name of some of them?
I wrote them down. One was there are several voodoo shops, uh,
Yes.
And one of these was in a voodoo shop. And when I walked in, I felt that, and my legs started like wobbling, like
Yes.
electricity, and my legs were shaking and buckling.
Was it a large voodoo shop?
Oh, I don't remember. It was one of the major ones.
Rob Zombie.
There's Marie Laveau's voodoo shop. There's Doc Zombies. This
Rob
might have been
Zombie
this.
does that to me. I cannot.
It might have been Doc Zombies.
I walked in there and I had to leave. And but the thing was, I didn't realize what was going on. The reader in the back was doing a reading, and I was there with some, adolescents that had wanted to go to a, and their parents were with them. And so we're sitting there, and when I walked in the door, this woman behind the counter was like, and just deadlocked on me. And I was like, yeah, hey, how you doing? And when I went to the back of the store where the other checkout place was, where the girl was looking at the candy skulls and stuff, I could feel a palpable wave coming from the area where I found out the reader was. And she was reaching out. And it was very disconcerting for me because I'm not dark, but that was. And I mean, I hadn't even seen the woman. I just felt her. And I was just kind of like, we need to go. So let's go ahead and pay for that and let's get out the door, because I felt like it was focusing on the younger people. And I felt like I was perceived as protecting them. So I was a problem. And all of this stuff, which I had no idea. I've been in that shop several times, but I've never been able to go back in it and even stand inside of it, because the energy that comes at me is just so, I don't know if they recognize me or if it's just something that they set up. I have no idea how that works.
Well, do we have
But
time for a short anecdote
yeah,
about that?
always.
Uh,
You have
I was
another hour. You got
as
lots
in,
of minutes.
as in New Orleans, and it's going on a ghost walking tour throughout the French Quarter. The tour started at Doc Zombie's Voodoo House,
Mhm.
and as you got your ticket, and they passed out these cheap plastic Mardi Gras beads that they said were blessed by the resident voodoo priest for protection as you're wandering through these haunted areas. So he's passing out these cheap white beads to everybody. The guy looked like he would be somebody from Doc Zombie's voodoo house. He looked like a voodoo priest. He
Yeah.
hands me the beads and he goes, "You come here, come here." Pulls me aside, says, "This is not a joke. You wear these. You need to wear these beads. They know you're here." So,
Yes.
okay, that's interesting. It pulled me aside, no one else, and he did not know who I was. He was not. He didn't recognize me from something, most
Yeah.
likely. Uh, they pulled me aside. Wear this for my protection. Okay, did the tour. Nothing happened. Uh, got home back to New Jersey, and it got home late from the airport. So I opened up my luggage, and I had all my ghost hunting gear with me. So I had tri-field meters, a Geiger counter, a bunch of things that have flashing lights and go beep. So I took all that stuff out, put it on the floor next to my bed. Everything turned off because I'm not stupid. I don't waste batteries, and I can't sleep when things are going beep 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 and lights are
Nope.
flashing. So everything was off. Next morning, got up, went to work at the police department, came back at like 4:30 p.m., walked into my apartment where I lived alone and no one else was in the apartment or had been in the apartment. All my gear is laying on the floor next to the bed, all lit up, going beep, 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 beep. And the Mardi Gras beads are laying on the floor next to this stuff. So, okay, maybe I had a brain fart. I know I turned this stuff off,
Yeah.
but we all have brain farts. So, okay, no big deal. Turn everything off. It takes me 2 to 3 weeks to when I get back from a trip, it takes me that long to actually put stuff back away and unpack properly. So the stuff was still on the floor the next day. I go to work, come back home, walk in the door to the bedroom. Everything's on the floor. The lights are flickering and going beep, 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 beep. Okay. this is not me just forgetting to turn this stuff off.
Right.
There's something going on. And of course, my mind goes back to Doc Zombie warning me, they know you're here. So the next day I go to work, everything's turned off, but I'm at work all day. All I can think about is when I get home and this stuff is going to be on, and I have my little camcorder with me at work. So when I open the door, I want to film it immediately to get evidence of this. Of course, now when I'm looking for it and expecting it, I go home, everything's off.
Nope.
So I still, that's one of those things that to this day makes me go,
I
And
know, right?
I still have the beads. They're right next to me on a shelf, but I'd get them, but I'd get off. I'd have to be off camera for a minute. So
It's okay because it's so New Orleans is its own world. But I find it interesting that you were at the Rob Zombie voodoo shop because that is the only place that I have had that problem. And there were 4 adults and 3 kids, okay, that were together. We basically did a death march through the French Quarter because the kids wanted to see it. But anyway, so we're walking out, and my friend is behind me, and she was in front of me, and she turned around to say something to me, and she was like, her face was like, ah, and she's not prone to theatrics. And I was like, what? She said, somebody was walking behind you, and then they weren't there. And I said, well, as long as they're not there, we're good. I don't know what to say. But no, that was one of the most, and I'm really not prone to flights of fancy. I do not get wigged out easily, but I could feel it was insidious. It was like so dark and so strong. Hi, Ed. And it was so radical. I mean, there was intent behind that outreach. And then when we were walking out, and Nina turned around and said, there's somebody that came out behind you, and there's nobody there. But I did not like that place. They do have really cool stuff. And if it doesn't bother you and you don't offend them by your presence, it's a good place to go. But I have a friend who is a voodoo queen in New Orleans. She goes by Bloody Mary. She does a really good job. She's got a neat museum. But it's really, I've been around her. I've done her tours. I've gone everywhere with her. I've done, investigated at her museum. Nothing like that. And yet, there are some places in New Orleans that are dark. There's some places in New York that are dark. There's some places everywhere that you go that are dark. But when I recognize that energy, and I'm lucky that I do, I don't mess with it because I don't like dark.
Not just the places, could also be you're encountering negative, malevolent people.
That too. I don't like them either. So, and I do have an early warning system for that. So that's good.
It is useful.
It is useful. But it took me, I've always had it. I can read people's intent pretty well. So that's a good gift to have. And I've
been to New Orleans maybe 5 times, I think 5 or 6 times. Supposed to go later this month again, but there's air traffic controller shortage at the Newark airport, and flights are being canceled and delayed for 10 hours and stuff. So I'm postponing my trip because I don't want to deal with airport hijinks.
No, I wouldn't either. If you go back, when you get there, if you want to see a really interesting person and an interesting location, and her knowledge of New Orleans lore is brilliant, as are her gifts. But I can connect you with her, and I'd be glad to do that. Yeah. And you would really enjoy it.
The more contacts I have, the better.
She would be an interesting study. I think you would like that.
Cool.
So, because, voodoo is its own thing. We don't really talk about the side of manifestation of these type things. You know, when people are actually, um, it's just weird. You
Most
know.
people in parapsychology would poo-poo the idea of voodoo having any influence, external influence outside the people's expectations and fears.
Mhm.
Uh, that there's no malevolent energy or force being externalized. That you cannot be cursed. There's no such thing. It's all psychological. But there are others. Dr. Peter McHugh in the
Mhm.
UK, for one,
Yeah.
who's written a book about curses and that the idea that they might have some objective reality that externalizes into space, and people can be encounter that and actually be influenced at a distance. Uh, and even if they don't know the curse has been placed
Mhm.
on them, so it's not expectation or suggestion. So different folks have different ideas about this. I remain open minded because I just don't know.
Well, I think that I don't know about being able to manifest actual curses. I know that if you believe in something strongly enough, then that can happen. So we can manifest our own negative experiences, just like we can manifest positive ones. But I do feel like that if somebody is, it's such a lame word, but if somebody is manifesting with negative intent, I feel like I feel like that's a dangerous thing to do because what you put out comes back if you really believe what they're supposed to. But I think that it's really naive to, because it's energy work, and energy work is a thing. People can manifest different kinds of energy, in my experience. So, as a faith or a practice, maybe I wouldn't be, you know, that person. But as far as working with energy with intent, I would have to say I do believe in that.
And that energy could be done, bright light energy, or it could be something dark
Absolutely.
and negative. There have been studies, research programs done, which strongly suggest that targeted prayer
Hmm.
does have an effect in healing.
I
That
agree.
when you have two people, both with an illness or cancer or whatever the illness is, the you'll have one person who a group of people will sit around and pray on a regular basis, either at the location or remotely from a distance. And then the other person is a control where nobody is, praying or, and not always religious prayer, sometimes just positive thoughts saying, get better, heal, imagine yourself being surrounded by a white light and you'll get better. The in the studies, which are legitimate,
Yes.
parapsychological studies, uh, the person who was prayed for had better outcome, healed faster, got better quicker than the control subject. So that is strongly suggestive that that intent can externalize from the well wishers and have an effect uh, out in the world. And I guess it's if that works, it's just as possible to send negative energy and in effect put a curse on somebody.
Well, I'm familiar with the studies that show that prayer does work, but I would think that absolutely the flip side of that coin works too. And I mean, if you want to go old school, you've got the Bell Witch. you know, that was a manifestation of really evil intent. But I just really think that intent and manifestation of that is an absolute thing. I mean, I have experienced it many times.
We think that what the focus behind psychokinesis is intent, sometimes conscious. Like if you're trying to bend a spoon. Now a
Yes.
lot of people, they think bending spoons, they think Uri Geller, and they think Uri
It's a
Geller
real thing.
a fake, but it's a real thing.
Yes.
Uh,
I've got a
uh,
spoon that terrifies my husband in my sugar jar.
yep. Lloyd hosts parties every now and
Yes.
then where the people, and you just get into a party mood and you're having fun and you go bend, 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 and damn thing's bent. So
Yes.
that's conscious intent, which is affecting the outside world. And we think in poltergeist cases, it's subconscious intent.
Mhm.
The agent, the stereotypical adolescent. Not always adolescents. There are poltergeist agents in their 80s, and there are ones,
But again, there's still brains changing.
yeah, that is true. They're going into maybe a second childhood at some point, but they're adults. I've worked with poltergeist people they're definitely poltergeist foci, but I'm convinced they're also the agent, the cause of it.
Mhm.
And these are in their early 30s.
Yes.
Uh, but most commonly, adolescents, young teenagers, uh, and they want something to break or a door to slam, because they have internal anger. But rather than getting up and slamming the door because they know they'll get their ass kicked,
Yeah.
they're just subconsciously they're sending out force. We're using that word force again
Yes.
because we have to call it something. But they're not doing it consciously, and they're as scared as everybody else when it happens because they don't know their subconscious mind caused it to happen. Uh,
Yeah.
but
But I
it's
think,
intent. It's intent.
yes,
Intent apparently has a lot of potential power behind it.
I think so. And, it's when I was an adolescent, my grandma, who was New Age before there was New Age, and who probably is where everything that I've ever been able to do came from, because my cousin, who I just met on Facebook last year, found me and sent me a message and said, I'm your fourth cousin on the Duke side, and we have a lot of the same skill sets, and I'd really like to get to know you. And I was like, what kind of skill sets? Well, abilities. And so that to me was, it was weird and kind of cool, but she's just like me.
I'm
So
picturing Liam Neeson saying, "I have a particular set of skills."
I do have those too. No, I'm just kidding. They're useful, but I don't use those. But sometimes just the threat of it is enough. I think that it's interesting because this is a woman I've never met ever. She is someone that, I mean, my grandma didn't really communicate much with her family down there, South Alabama, once she was here. And it's just really funny. So I would love to have been an adolescent with this cousin and compared notes, right? To see if, because it was puberty. I mean, I had experiences as a kid, but the puberty was such a delineating period because it was like, yeah, this is fine, and I knew things, blah, 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 blah. And then when I hit puberty, it was like, whoa, everything went haywire. And it was just the energy, the hormones that made the energy rock the rock the world of a lot of people at that point. But
Added fuel to the fire.
oh my goodness, it did. So when you've oh, Robert Gorman, you have a good night, and I'm so glad you were here, and be blessed. Good night. So I am, just, I love these conversations because with you, I never know where we're going to go. And so now here I am talking about my fourth cousin that lives in South Alabama that I've never met, who's just like me. But heaven help the world, right? So, but Have you done any studies, or do you know people who have done studies, um, individuals who were kind of like us, we're similar, but we have no idea. We didn't even know the other existed.
I've
Yeah.
not done anything involving that kind of work. I have read anecdotal stories about it. Uh, in fact, there's a magazine from the UK called Fortean Times,
Yes.
which has a section called "It Happened to Me," kind of like a Fate's report from the readers. And there are lots of reports like that people are contacted by a cousin or a brother or somebody they never knew they had, and then the similarities when they meet each other. They've gone to the same career field. They both play the violin. They're both married to a redhead named Sue. Stuff like that, which is amazing coincidence.
Absolutely.
But it seems to be more than coincidence, and uh, in in many cases. There's some kind of energy field connecting both of them in another state or in another country, but their lives have followed parallel paths to
Mhm.
an amazing degree.
Well, when she reached out, we both have children of similar ages. Our youngest are very similar to each other. The family history of those youngest is very similar. I mean, it blew my mind. I'm not much of one for, you know, coincidences that much. And the odds of this person finding me on Facebook were surprising. Yeah. But it is kind of fun because a friend had some haunting happening in her house and they caught stuff on their security camera. And so she sent me the footage, and I'm like, oh, who is that? Because you could see a woman in a coat come in a doorway and walk through the living room.
Wow.
And the people that were commenting on it were like, oh, well, that's it, whatever. That's the door she used to come in. And look, that's her house coat. And I was like, I'm seeing this, right?
It, and that is unique. I mean, as I said, the general parapsychological model is that a ghost can't be filmed because it's not reflecting light.
Right?
So it's very rare for something like that to happen and be filmed, a figure walking.
Well, it was more of a glide, but I mean, it was obviously a figure with a coat. And so I didn't know who these people were. I mean, she just brought me in on that chat, and I'm like, look at that. So anyway, I got to experience this figure moving through the room.
which
And
which you never would have seen if she had not found you and reached out to you.
yes,
Yep.
so to me, that was like bonus. Have a cousin and I get ghosts. So, you know, for a ghost hunter, that's a lot of fun, as you would know. So,
That could be a
but
TV show on Discovery Channel, Ghost Cousins.
well, I don't know about that. I've been on TV once and it was not my favorite thing, although it was very cool. But, it was, I like doing this more. So it was, I like doing this more. I'd rather go find people and talk to them that I like so than be on TV
Problem of being on TV is you're not in control
at
of
all.
the editing of what they present, how they make you look. So any TV appearance is always a gamble that you can have a coherent conversation on camera like we're having here, but
Right.
when they show it on TV, it can make you look like you're you know some mad scientist nut job.
Have you heard me talk? But it was actually a lot of fun. It was about an experience I had at a friend's jail. And it was my first experience really at her jail. And I'd gone to do a live show. and I offended the ghosts that lived there, and they let me know.
Uh,
And I was just kind of like, no, you don't get to talk to me like that. It was, I did kind of get fired up because they were messing with my equipment, my recording equipment, because I was going to do a live show. And so I was just like, you've got to, and it just kept getting worse. I had a producer at the time, and he was like, I can hear everything. I'll let you know if you need to leave. A few minutes later, he said, you need to get out of there, take your stuff. But she has a portal, and so she turned it on. And I was just like, you're going to have to start. I am too mad. And we had a discussion. And when I said my piece, the spirit voice through the box said, really? I'm like, really? Not here for my health. I've got a 9-hour drive home tomorrow. Da, 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 you know, and it was just like, and ever since then, every time I go, it's a pleasant experience. So, was not the first time, but it was every time since then. So, because I have found, I know that sounds crazy if you aren't a ghost hunter, you probably would be shocked that you can communicate with them quite like that. But, you know, it's so easy to do that for me. And I think it is for a lot of people. You know, you can't run screaming from the building and never be able to go back again. And my friend had that. Yeah, that's where I went to see my friend. So it was freaky though. Have you had something that made you absolutely just go, holy crap, this stuff is real?
I don't, not with 100%.
Really?
Yeah, I've not had an absolute, because as I mentioned, every model. Oh yes, this stuff is real, definitely. I have not had anything that has convinced me that there are ghosts. I don't have psychic ability to have communication with them like you do. I've never filmed anything because that's exceedingly rare. Uh, I've had experiences where I've seen objects moving under their own volition in a poltergeist case. Um, but again, somebody could always say, "Oh, that's some micro tremors underground. It's causing the house to vibrate and it's causing that to move." I don't think so,
I agree.
but I couldn't bet my life on it. And, I have felt things like at the Farnsworth House in Gettysburg, the nausea. I felt the stuff in New Orleans at the voodoo shop. Uh, there's other places. Again, I've walked through doorways either just as a tourist or working a case. I've entered a house and there's just a sensation of density and
Yeah.
pressure. So yeah, there are things, weird things that I've experienced that are definitely real. Uh, I lived in a haunted house where everybody there saw things except me, but I saw their reactions to it in real
Right.
time. So yeah, I'm convinced that there is real stuff. But again, until the day I see, the apparition of Aunt Mabel appear in front of me, then I blink and she's gone. Especially if I know Aunt Mabel's been dead for 20 years.
Hmm.
That's the holy grail moment. I'm hoping to find. I doubt I'll be able to capture anything on film because I think 99.9% of the time these things cannot be filmed, either because they don't reflect light. It's happening as a message being sent to my brain, or if it could be photographed, I think there's a tricksterish element to a lot of this stuff, and it knows when the camera's pointed in its
They
direction.
do.
It'll pop
So
up
annoying.
behind you or somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I doubt I could capture anything as far as evidence, but to experience something definite where I would know, deep inside, hey, this is real. This is paranormal. There's no other way to explain it. And people who have these experiences, that's their experience. They say, yep, I don't care what the scientists say. I don't care if it doesn't fit within this accepted model of how, the current spontaneous psychokinesis works. I don't care if it doesn't fit in with the current, paradigm. I experienced it. I know this is real. I know this ghosts are real. I know, unseen forces are real. So you're never going to convince an experiencer that they did not experience what they did. So I'm looking for that experience. I've had things which skirted around the edges, enough of it to make me have several. This is pretty damn weird. But no, slap in the face kind of experiences yet. And investigators get slapped in the face
They
in
do.
certain cases, or scratched or something. I
I
I would
would.
love to experience that.
Would you really? The scratching?
Uh,
I
not
feel that
really,
it's. I feel that it's something that's being kind of an ass when they do that.
yeah, but again, it's undeniable that it's something real. Now, there is going to be a contingent in our field that's going to say, "Well, it's psychosomatic. You subconsciously
Yeah,
cause that to happen," and that is a thing. People
it is a thing.
can do that to themselves. But you have to look at the totality of the circumstances, where you are, what's going on. Uh, I am not prone to self injury, either consciously or subconsciously. So if I'm in a haunted house uh, where people have reported being scratched, one location like that, I was there in September and October of this past year, Edinburgh, Scotland. There's a
Really?
graveyard where the Mackenzie Vault is, and the Mackenzie Poltergeist is the term. And people who visit that vault or get near it are pushed, shoved, scratched. So I spent my time in the frigid cold hanging out around the Mackenzie Vault and saying, "Yeah, come on, I'm here, scratch me." And nothing happened. But if it did, that would be my aha moment. Because I would have very difficult time accepting that I subconsciously did that to myself psychosomatically.
I just spent 3 weeks in Scotland
Hmm.
this year, and that's where I was in Edinburgh. The first I had two of those experiences. The first was at the Writers Museum, um, and I got hit in the back of the head. Felt
Oh,
like
wow.
somebody hit me with a golf club, and it. I mean, crossed my eyes, and I kept feeling because I felt for blood because I thought, did I fall? Have I fallen? I mean, I'm still standing up. No, I didn't. And so I finally asked, and I mean, because it was a private, just us, and so I asked our guide if anyone. I said, "Has anyone ever died of a head injury in here?" I'm sorry to ask that, but and she just kind of looked over at our friend, and she was like, "Well, yes, a man slipped and hit his head on the marble stairs going out, and they brought him in and paid for his medical care and stuff, but he succumbed to his injury." And I was like, "Well, where was he?" And she's like, "Well, the paperwork for his bills and stuff is in the room you just walked out of." And I was blown freaking away because I didn't know what else to ask. I didn't know how to say somebody just nailed me in the back of the head with a golf club or something. But my co-investigator, Lori, who's in chat, looked over at me. She's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "I just got hit in the head." And because she saw me reach, and I guess I went pale. And that was the first time I've ever had a physical manifestation of somebody else's symptoms like that. And and then there was an actual backstory to go with that, which blew
Hmm.
me away because the people that were there's faces when I asked that question were dumbfounded. I mean, and they just kind of looked at each other and looked at me. And then she told me. And then when I got shot on the battlefield, I was just walking, talking with a friend, and all of a sudden my abdomen, it felt like, the size of my fist hit me in the abdomen and went through. And, you know, the English were the only ones with guns there at Culloden. I was on Culloden battlefield. And so it was in an area where I'd been told, sometimes there's activity here, but I wasn't focused on that. I was chatting as I was walking across, down the path. And so it completely took me by surprise. And again, I don't have residual from the head, but I still have residual from the abdomen. So, and I've got to tell you that I don't really want that skill set. So if it could just go away from this point on, I'd be fine with that. I have no idea what initiated it. I've never had it before. So
Those things are very commonly reported in the literature. That's one of the most common things is feeling a specific sensation, which.
But an actual injury sensation?
Yeah, that's actually very common.
Really?
People report, people with mediumistic abilities, psychic abilities, report, the feeling of being shot, being stabbed. And then they do the research and find out that, yep, okay, that experience that I felt happened to this person at this time, at this location. And when all those things correlate with each other, that is a significant evidentiary value when that happens.
But can you turn it back off?
Well, I'd be a little bit concerned about your abdomen still being painful. Usually this is a transient.
Well, there's nothing wrong with me. I mean,
I've been checked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I didn't know why it was still doing that.
I don't know. I've not heard of that. That is uncommon.
But it's not all the time. It's almost like a phantom pain that it just periodically does it. It's not constant. It was constant for a while we were there because we still had another week after that. But it's not often now, but it does still happen. And there's nothing wrong with me. I've been to the doctor.
Is it enough of a pain that it really bothers you when it flares up, or just?
It just reminds me that it happened. It's like the parameter of the circle. It's just like, hello.
I've not heard of a case that lingered like that. Usually, it's very transient. You're at the spot where a person had that injury, and then you feel something like that injury.
Yeah, that's what happened at the Writers Museum. But the thing at Culloden, it wanted to come to America.
It's possible. And just because I'm not aware of a case with those specific dynamics doesn't mean there's not. I've certainly not reviewed every person's experience in the literature of the field.
I just had no idea, really, that was a common thing because I'm not a medium.
Yeah, being in the location. A medium, if it's a ghost that wants you to know what happened to it, and it could leave you a message through an EVP, saying I was shot, or it might just give you the sensation of what it felt like when it was shot in the gut. It is a common thing. That's if it's a ghost. Most likely, though, it's a place memory. The person was shot or injured at that location, went through so much terror and pain that he somehow imprinted the local environment with that. And like in a residual haunting, you're picking up residual, not just images, not just sounds, but it can also be sensations and feelings.
Well, I am good. I'm very much empathic to people's pain. So
this could be just a hyper energized version of the same thing, rather than just
like it.
Well, I wouldn't like that either.
That's very disconcerting, but I'm surprised that I didn't know that was so common.
Well, none of this stuff is common, like uh, car accidents. Car
Right.
accidents happen every day, hundreds around the country. Hauntings and encounters like that are relatively rare altogether in the big picture. Not every house is haunted. Not every battlefield, you know, people have experiences there, but there are some that do. There are a certain number of houses that are haunted. Not everybody can perceive or experience these things, but certain people can. You're one of these people. Uh, so, but within the plethora of specific phenomena that are reported at haunted locations, feeling pain, feeling sensations, which often corresponds to known documented specific injuries to someone who was there, someone who died there.
Well, there were 1,465 Jacobites that died there, and they weren't the ones with the guns. And 500 British died there who did have the guns. So there was a lot of death to choose from there. So it was really, I mean, it was surprising. I was shocked.
It
But,
definitely caught you off guard because you were not expecting that.
well, both of them did. And I decided that if that's what an experiential medium is, I'm done. I'm not going to be that anymore. Everybody could just go away and leave me alone. So I don't mind telling stories, but I don't really want to have that kind of experience to tell.
Yeah, and I think the feeling, the pain, physical pain issue is probably most common with mediums. There are reports mediums say, "Oh, I feel a horrible pain in my eye." It turns out the person they're talking to got shot in the eye during a battle, so they do pick up on things like that. And so I'm assuming in that case, since it's a medium talking with a spirit, that the spirit is just sending that transmission to them. Hey, this is what I felt. Want you to feel it too.
Yeah. It was just, you know, I wasn't I wasn't looking for that. I had not invited that. I was just, I mean, at the Writers Museum at that point we were just doing a tour before we investigated. Seeing the rooms and, you know, just touring the Writers Museum. And I did not anticipate that at all. That was not on my bingo card for the trip. And I was just like, it is interesting because the energy in Scotland, you were there. The energy there is so it's very strong to me. And very few places did I not feel like there were experiences around. I I love Old Town Edinburgh. I could walk there 24/7, wouldn't be nervous, wouldn't be scared. But some of the places have such energy that it's why Greyfriars, Greyfriars Cemetery there was one of the really active places that I felt. But
And I
not in a
spent
bad
a
way.
lot of time there trying to feel something at Greyfriars, and uh, nothing came out to play with me, and I didn't pick up on anything. The places I felt like a weird sensation that things had changed, as in Old Town, they have all those closes, those
Yes. Oh my
dark
gosh.
uh, corridors and alleyways,
Hmm.
and in a couple of those, I felt like a weird, sensation. And a
There's
couple of them have reputations for being haunted. I think Mary's.
Mary
Uh,
King's Close.
yeah,
That was actually, and I went in there and did a tour, and it was. Did you go down?
I did not go down. No.
It would be worth you feeling it because it's not necessarily the hauntings, but the energy there. Because people lived there so many different times because they had to go underground because of the bombardments. That's why the closest the underground living is down there
Hmm.
People were down there in fear. People were down there. I mean, families living in one room, and they dumped their waste over the sides out the, going down. And smallpox was prevalent through those. There was so much illness through there. And the there were a lot of I was particularly drawn to a place called Advocates Close. I never got to go down into it, but that particular one just called me. So if you go back, check that one out.
I
But
plan on going back. Yep.
oh, good. You know what? If you ever go to Scotland, you'll always go back.
Yep.
That's what I was told. And so far, HG back is what I hear all the time from my friends. And I'm like, I'm trying. So,
I want to go back to Edinburgh, spend some more time doing specific ghostly stuff. The last fall, I had my wife with me,
mhm.
and she's terrified of all that stuff. So a lot of the places I wanted to do and snooping around, I couldn't really do because it would terrify her. But I'm going to go back on my own. I want to spend some time in Edinburgh, then go out to Inverness for a few days, go Nessie hunting. I went to Fort Augustus when I was there and was out on Loch Ness for a couple of hours. But I need to spend more time with Nessie. Me, a bottle of scotch, and Nessie. That's
There
the
is
trifecta.
there is a person there when you go to where the restaurant was, which was closed when we were there. But there's a guy, and he is the Loch Ness hunter, and he has like an old Airstream there.
Oh, Steve Felton, I think his name is. Yeah.
Knock on the door, and he will come and talk to you.
Uh,
And my friends laugh at me because I'm a beach girl. And so anywhere I go, if there's water, I'm putting my feet in the water. And I did at Loch Ness.
cool.
And so it's really that water, it's cold. I'm used to the Gulf of Mexico. But the energy of that water, because there are divers everywhere, it's so pretty. Um, you will absolutely enjoy spending time with them.
Yeah, good. He was actually on my list of people to make contact with. I know he makes and sells little ceramic
Nessie.
Nessie things he sells.
Well, I didn't get to talk to him, but my friend Mikey did, Mikey Thompson. And so definitely knock on his door
Okay, sounds like a plan.
and he will come and talk to you. There's also a Scottish UFO and paranormal conference there that you could, it's very small. It's not like what we're used to here, but it was still interesting because Malcolm Robinson was speaking.
Oh, I know Malcolm. Yeah,
So he was
we've
there.
not met, but we've chatted. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's just fun stuff. And that was in Glasgow. So, and we'll talk about all the places off the air because I envy you getting to go back soon. It's a wonderful, wonderful place.
And the area around Loch Ness and Inverness and some of the other the Lochside towns, there's lots of hauntings, lots of haunted buildings. You got
Yes.
Boleskine House on the shore, which had a history of haunting ever since Aleister Crowley lived there.
Yes.
And there's one school of thought that Nessie might not be a physical creature. It might be some manifestation caused by all of the spooky, ghostly stuff going on in the area, and maybe even Aleister Crowley made a spell and summoned Nessie from the multiverse.
From the depths.
Yeah,
Well, she's been there longer than he was.
yes, oh yes.
So, but it's really interesting. You're right. The Highlands is spectacular. And we got to investigate some places that are off the beaten path. And because we're in Edinburgh, we connected with our friends of Scottish Paranormal going up to Fife. We spent some time in St. Andrews. And then we connected in Inverness with our friends from Highland Paranormal, which is a TAPS team.
Okay.
So they were brilliant. Everybody there is brilliant. But there's so much that you still get to go back and look at. You're going to have so much fun.
That's
So,
the plan.
how long are you going to be there?
Don't know yet. I'm looking at summer of next year. I want to do a week in England. I want to go to Cornwall. I have a
Oh,
colleague who's going to take us to the Jamaica Inn, which is supposed to be a very haunted inn
yes.
on the shore there. Some more stuff in London. I love London.
I haven't been yet.
And then after that, head back to Scotland, do a few days in Edinburgh, then head up to Inverness for a few more days.
Well, Inverness is brilliant. And they have the oldest house in Scotland there, the Abertoft House, which is beautiful. And it's just, you're going to absolutely need to connect with these people because they are, Scottish Paranormal is a true research group of ghost hunters. They are, in fact, they were, Ryan O'Neill, one of their founders was Scottish, Haunted Scotland and on Haunted Ireland, also on the Discovery Channel. Very, very professional investigators. So it's a lot. They're good people, and you would be lesser if you didn't get a chance to meet them. It would be fun.
As the time gets closer, I'll make contact and I'll drop your name.
Do that. Do that. I'll actually send a thing and let them know that you're coming
Cool.
too. So what do you have that you're going to be, other than having this wonderful trip this summer? What else do you have coming up? What kind of research are you working on? Or
I have no active field investigation cases. And every year I get fewer and fewer calls for that because all those people who are experiencing stuff are calling people. They work for these Billy Bob's Ghost and Demon Hunting Club.
yes.
And that's not what I do.
Obviously, they've never found a demon, or they would not be looking for that. But
yeah. If you ever thought about that, if they believe in demons, and you're looking at a demon as the biblical concept of a fallen angel with all of the amazing power,
skill sets,
an amazing set of skills, and you're going to go, some college kid, with some burning sage, you're going to go, take on, Asmodeus.
Yes.
Third circle of hell. I don't think so. But hey, to each their own. But yeah, there's
they
so
won't
many.
Do it but once.
Yeah, once. But there are so many. I think at the latest, there's like 3,000 or 6,000 individual ghost hunting groups in the U.S. who have a website. That Lloyd had mentioned that recently.
Oh, wow.
So the field is saturated, and I mean, the fact is 95% of these groups are not credible and do not have the appropriate skill set. They might be have their hearts in the right place. A lot of them are just in it for the thrill, to be running around graveyards at night and getting drunk. But there's so much diffusion in so many different groups. That I no longer get, and Lloyd told me he had the same problem too, that he doesn't get the calls for cases anymore. All the people ask, well, what TV show are you on? Or are you an affiliated TAPS family member? Oh, you're not? Oh, then you're not a professional. Oh, okay.
That's so not the requisite.
But so I'm not doing that much field investigation unless it's like doing stuff in Scotland and in Gettysburg on my own, like you do. Well, I am doing a research project. I am, and if anybody listening has any leads for me, we're all familiar with the concept of sleep paralysis,
Mm-hmm.
where people are laying in bed, they wake up, they are awake, but then they realize they can't move, they're paralyzed, and they feel a sense of impending evil encroaching on them, and they'll see figures, they'll see dark shadows or figures or demonic looking creatures enter the room. And they're terrified, they're in fear of their lives, they can't move, they can't scream, but eventually you struggle enough and you can break out of that and you yell and everything is going on. Science, parapsychology and medical science looks at that as a purely medical
Mm-hmm.
and neurological phenomena. You're awake, but you're still partially in a dream state. And when you're dreaming, the body sends chemicals throughout the body to paralyze you, so you can't hurt yourself while you're dreaming. If you're dreaming that you're running, you don't actually want your legs
Right.
running in bed, so your body paralyzes yourself. So we think it's all, well, the model is it's all a medical thing, nothing supernatural. There's no entity entering the room. I have come across a couple of cases out there in cyberspace where people have mentioned, oh, my wife saw this thing too. And she tried to wake me up and couldn't wake me up. And she saw, describe this. Only one or two cases that I found just surfing the web in different discussion forums where people who have sleep paralysis talk about and share their experiences. It's not paranormal discussion groups. It's sleep paralysis discussion groups. But a couple of people had mentioned that somebody else saw and experienced what they experienced. So I want to do a survey through all. I'm going to reach out to the parapsychological groups, the societies, the journals, and I'm going to reach out to the support groups for sleep paralysis and see if I can find any more of those stories where it's more than one person. Because if there is a enough of a number of cases, one case might be an outlier, somebody might be making something up. But if I can find more cases where it's multiple experiencers, that opens up a whole new can of worms. And this may go nowhere. I may not find any cases. It might not happen.
Well, if you don't try, you'll never know.
Yeah, but I want to look, because if I can find something, this could be profound for the field. Multi-witness, multi-experiencers. So,
well, gosh,
that's what I'm going to be delving into.
Well, you'll have to keep me up to date on that. That's interesting.
If it goes anywhere and I find anything, I'll definitely talk to you.
Thanks. Well, thanks for talking to me now.
My pleasure.
I have enjoyed this so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Because I know that our listeners do too. So I've got your website on everything that I use to promote the show. Do you want to go ahead and give it to them here?
Okay. It's ghosthunter.iwarp.com. And that's the website.
That right?
Yes, ghosthunter.iwarp. Because I'm warped. So I thought it was appropriate.
I wasn't going to go there, but okay.
And you can also just search for my name on Facebook and find my Facebook page, and you can follow me there.
And read his work. Also, you can find on the website, you can find some of his papers on his Facebook page. And I just appreciate you. I have forgotten just how much I enjoy our conversations. We're going to have to do this again soon.
Definitely.
All right. And for everyone listening, you're the reason that we do these shows. I appreciate y'all being here. If you're listening to this in rebroadcast, I hope you enjoyed it nearly as much as I did. And we will see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night.